So thank you so much for joining. We have made it to session 3, finding the brand, or in some cases, the brands, plural. This is a really fun session all about finding the right fit for your space and your community. And so we'll go through the slides and then we'll have time for Q&A after as well. So hopefully you have found your space or have a good idea around what space would work by this point. And now it's time to get to the next step in the process to bring it to life and fill it with amazing local brands and founders that will activate. And so the right location is essential, but so are the right brands to really invigorate and energize the physical space and bring a mix of products and experiences into the community and just really transform that whole destination. So it can go from just a dormant space, a vacancy, to something that everyone is excited to come out and be a part of. So when we look at the whole process, which involves launching an application and vetting different founders and applicants who are coming through, you want to take a moment to reflect on what are the right types of brands for this space? Who do I think will really thrive here? And you can do this in a whole slew of ways, but part of it is what kinds of businesses are already nearby? What has synergy? What would be an additive product, service, experience to the mix? Is there something that's missing here? When I first got started with pop-ups, that was exactly where the need was coming from. I was working for a developer, not a municipality, but essentially there was a lack of local tenancy. There was a lack of good coffee and bagels. There were things that would really help make that particular area a destination. So sometimes it's not just about what you have, but what's missing. You also want to think about the customer that is coming by each and every day. So who is organically there? And then perhaps that outer circle, who might be drawn to this area that it's accessible to if you had something more to meet their needs? And then what kind of energy do you want to bring to this space? And that's really about, is this a space that is a later night destination? Does it have traffic morning through evening? What type of use matches up well with the type of activity that you would like to see in that storefront? So this is a little bit of a crowded slide, but essentially you are looking to meet a whole bunch of different criteria that you are defining with your team, with the community to bring this space together. So it's visual interest, appeal, diversity of offerings. You don't want to create just extra layers of competition for your existing local businesses. You want to create something new and different and exciting that will make every one of those businesses in the area more of a destination because synergy and cross promotion are so key here. So this is a list of categories that we often use to identify not only in the application, but through the vetting process, through the interview process, what can really work well for pop-up use. And it ties back to what can be merchandised quickly, inventory sourced or built up, what is easy to merchandise with a variety of different types of spaces, and also draws a nice range of customers. And then again, you would be looking at what works well for your community. What is that value add? A little word to the wise, food and beverage can be tricky. So amazing if you can do a pop-up that you have a space that's well suited for food and beverage, and perhaps you have your health department queued up well in advance so that they are ready to move quickly through the process with you. But if that is not the case, I would just caution you to think carefully about bringing in a fresh food use because it can really slow down the process. There are just so many more requirements through the health department, through the preparation process. So if you have a tight timeline, it can be challenging. That said, there are plenty of food options that can be prepared and served elsewhere. and completely packaged. And the requirements for that are much different. So, in most municipalities. So, you do have some flexibility around food, and packaged food can pair really nicely with other dry goods for retail. So, definitely a consideration, but something that you should think through before jumping into accepting applicants that are in the fresh food industry. So let's go back to starting with fit because you will definitely get a range of applicants, and we will get into the application process and that specific uh, concept. But right now, I just want you to think about how you will be inviting an open call for applicants, and they need to be prepared for this opportunity. Unless you are doing something with a very long lead time where you know a space will be available in 3, 6, 9 months, and you have the opportunity to market the pop up and open applications ahead of schedule, which is rare but not unheard of. Like with a mobile concept, you have a little bit more flexibility on the timeline, or if you know a space will be turning over, a business retiring, some of those circumstances, that can be the case. But generally speaking, it's a fairly short timeline where you're just looking at a month or two at the most, where these brands can apply and be ready to launch throughout that short time frame. And so the vetting process looks a little different for a pop-up. You are looking for those businesses that are basically ready to take this leap into brick and mortar, where they may have been operating online for some time, they have an established following, email list. And anyway, there's just lots of different things that you want to feel out as you're looking at these opportunities for the brands that are applying. And then the other thing that we really love about pop-ups is that there is this unique opportunity to share space. So that can be an option if you'd like to fit multiple brands, 2 or 3 typically at the most, within the same storefront, because that means that they have the opportunity to share staffing, to share expenses, to share marketing lift, to share a whole bunch of different resources that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so if you make that known that shared space is a possibility, and you vet, engage who is interested in taking the storefront on their own versus with another brand or two, or is flexible to either option, that can really expand your pool of eligible applicants and interested founders. So let's talk about brand readiness. So a lot of businesses might be excited about the opportunity, but not every business is ready to open a physical storefront. And essentially, you need someone who has the spark that it takes to put all of their energy into this pop up for a short time. So basically, they need to understand that they need to physically show up here. This is not an open as you please situation. For this to be really successful and thrive and get a true test of the market and to be great for your community, they need to show up minimum 5 days a week in a physical storefront. Sometimes a mobile storefront or something that's more event driven is just weekends or long weekends. But in most physical storefronts, you want to match the hours as much as possible of the other storefronts in the area, pair back to restaurants and services, and make sure that these founders who are applying, the entrepreneurs, understand that they have to show up. And if they cannot show up, staff has to show up. They need to be prepared to commit. And that will engage the whole process and make it really come to life in the way that you're looking to make it all happen. Um, so, in addition to vetting for a whole bunch of different criteria in the physical online application, you also probably want to get on a call, on a Zoom, on a phone call, really just feel out the personality of the entrepreneur and what their energy, excitement, and availability is around the opportunity. Because there are certain things that you cannot vet for on paper, right? Just like when we meet people face to face or go to a networking event or interview someone for a job, it's that similar feeling where you really get to understand the person in real time. So here are some indicators and questions to look for. And again, we'll get into the application itself, but these are some of the metrics. Do they have an online presence? Vast majority of the time, if they do not already have an active website, an active social media, even if it's just one account, say they've chosen to focus on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be, uh, they're not ready for a brick and mortar. They need to have some established brand presence. So, are they active on these sites? Are they posting regularly to social media? Can customers find them? Because part of opening a storefront is being able to search up this brand, not just through your pop-up site that amplifies them, but through their own online presence. Do they have an established product line? Are their offerings cohesive and well developed? Are they able to have depth of inventory? Does the product feel like a fit for your community? And you can look at demographics, psychographics, price point, all of those different things. Do they have enough to fill a storefront or their portion of the storefront? And will it add intrigue and interest? Is there enough variety there? So this does tie into inventory readiness. Do they have enough inventory already on hand? Or if not, can they procure it? If they're a maker, can they source and create enough product on the timeline that they have? Or if they're a retailer or a combination of the two, can they bring in enough product? Do they have the capital to do that? Do they have the resources or do they have an established set of partners so that they can activate as needed on the timeline? Can they restock quickly if needed? Can they make more product quickly? Can they source more product quickly? And then finally, brand identity and visuals. Does their brand have a strong point of view? Does it have a look and feel that's going to resonate? And this actually matters quite a bit because you might be seeing brands that come through that have done a farmer's market or um, trunk shows or pop-ups or events here and there. But if they have not really developed a brand identity that they associate with their product, with their personal story, it doesn't translate very well into a physical retail environment. So they need to have an understanding of branding and also a vision for how it's going to translate into a physical space. And that ties into signage and merchandising and store presentation, which there you can certainly provide resources, fixtures, guidance. We offer resources around that, but they do have to have that point of view and can either evolve or be ready to jump right in with their brand. Just a few more pieces here. Staffing capacity. Do they have the time and support to be present in the space consistently? So this is what I was speaking to you about, that minimum 5 days a week. Maybe they're closed on Sundays and Mondays, or they're willing to start with 5 days and potentially expand to more if the demand is there. Can they be there for a dedicated stretch of hours? And if not, can they pull in staffing? Do they have people they can tap for that? Can they tap into a college community or share staffing with a fellow brand or hire someone? So they just need to be sort of open to all of these possibilities. All of this can be learned, but if they're not prepared for the requirements or the nature of retail, it will be that much harder. And then operations and POS. Typically, most brands these days who are applying for something like this do have a point of sale system. They might need a little bit of help getting the physical components, whether that's a Square system or a Shopify system, something that ties to an iPad if they're working exclusively online currently. But thankfully, with where technology has evolved, most brands have something that can plug and play pretty quickly. And then are they comfortable processing transactions, tracking sales, handling returns? Those are all parts of the customer experience that should not be overlooked. So it's just a nice point of discussion. And then a collaboration mindset. This is huge in pop-ups. This is huge in developing relationships with different founders and entrepreneurs that you want to incubate in your community. Are they open to cross promotion? Are they willing to co-market and add that positive energy to the retail environment? And will they be a good neighbor? Just like if you're buying a house and you're moving in next door to someone, you want people that you're looking to hang out with. And I mean, that on a personal level, yes, but beyond that, just a shared collaboration mindset where they understand that they're not looking to put someone out of business. They're looking to bring more business for themselves and those around them, which is really what makes a pop-up and a municipal partnership thrive. Okay, so now we're switching gears to drafting your application, meaning They the application process is going to live on your website or project pop-up site. It's going to live online, and you have complete control over the details that you will gather. So essentially, this is how we structure it. I'm just showing you the precursor pages. So for example, in Lowell, uh, this is a landing page that is an overview of the opportunity. And we tend to use this type of language, currently accepting applications, make it really clear because you may have applications that open and close, or you may want to leave the page up after. So just calling that out. And then calling all emerging brands, artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators. It is uh, really important to make the people that you are interested in having apply feel seen, because someone might not go by the same name. They may not think of themselves as an entrepreneur or a founder or a brand or an artist. There is so much flexibility in what you can bring into a space through a pop-up. And so you want that definition to be as broad as makes sense for your community. We often talk about these incubator spaces as launch pads. And then that list of categories that we share, that we will share in the deck, is flexible and also something that we encourage you to list. So if there's something in particular that you want to prioritize, maybe it's sustainable brands, maybe it's packaged food brands, maybe it's artists, highlight that. Make the applicants understand that the opportunity is for them. And then we like to be very transparent in the information that we're sharing. And this is so helpful in vetting brands, pre-vetting brands. Then there's sort of a self-selection process that happens as you're coming through. And it is more about the nuts and bolts. You don't want to overwhelm them with information, but you're talking about the physical space. You're sharing as many photos as possible of the space when it's empty, the space when it's full, the nature of the setup, the square footage, the location, the actual address. So again, as much information as you can possibly share. And then this is a big one, the monthly rent, utilities. What are their cost expectations? And in some cases, it's very, very low. Like this opportunity here is only $100 a month. In other places, it's $1,000 a month. It really varies by the nature of the funding and the real estate economy and location and so on. Including utilities, whenever possible, establishing a flat rate. We've talked about that's really helpful, even Wi-Fi. And then the seasonality. So what is the time frame for the opportunity? It will probably be very specific. If you're doing a mobile, it might be a shorter turnover, a week or two at a time. But if you're doing, say, a year-long incubator, you're typically looking at 3 to 4 month seasons. And you want to make that really clear because you will be asking them to submit all of their availability and interest for the dates. And then, with a little asterisk, you do want to leave some flexibility. Circumstances can change. A brand might be thriving and want to extend in the space, but share with others that rotate. So here's the shared space call out. It may be available to multiple collaborators. And the choice of language is really intentional here, right? Just like we're talking about how they have to have a collaboration mindset. When you put that right in your application, you're going to attract more applicants who are on the same page. And then we like to call out the suite of resources. So if there are marketing or public relations or fixture support, anything either physical or not as tangible, any funding available directly to them, any signage support, any special events, even a ribbon cutting that you're planning to do in partnership with them is huge. And then again, photos and a map, just as much information as possible. And then the application itself, we embed a Google form on the site. You can do this any way that makes sense for you. But essentially, this is where you collect all of the information that you will use for that initial vetting process before you decide whether or not you'd like to meet face to face. And so it's all of the basics: email, company name, founder or contact name, website link. You'll see that this is required. Now, if they don't have a website, you will find out right away. They will put something else in there. But some online presence I stress is really important. Mailing address, you can put as much or as little of this information as you would like, but this is where it's key to understand the story behind the brand. So the type of business and the concept. What is it that they want to bring into this space? And people tend to be very forthcoming in these applications in terms of their passion shining through. So even though it's just in writing online through a portal, you'll get answers to these questions. What excites them about this opportunity? How would it be transformative for you and your brand? That will really indicate what their readiness is, what their appetite is, what their excitement level is, because that's what you're looking for. You are looking for someone who is so thrilled about the nature of this opportunity that they are going to put their all in. And then this is optional as well, but many municipalities do like to know the background of the applicants that are coming in. um, Maybe there's an opportunity to prioritize, locally owned businesses, absolutely, but minority or women-owned businesses or whatever it may be. And then a little bit more information around how long they've been in business. Here's where you can collect category information. How do they define themselves? Um, just this is where it comes down to availability. Now you can, if you have set seasons, you can structure this differently. But again, we encourage people to lean on putting as much availability as possible because you as the curator get way more flexibility when the brands that are applying can flex. And then you can really think about the curation and what product makes sense for what time of year in that space. Um, anyway, this is just a bit more information. Sometimes you may want to check for budget. They will have the exact requirements. You're asking them if they're interested in sharing space, all of these different things that we're covering. So in the companion that we have for today's session, you will also be receiving email templates. So there are templates you can customize that are about communicating with your applicants and setting the tone for the process and I, notifying them when they've been accepted to the opportunity. So that will help you to really just plug and play and shape the conversation. So just wanted to make mention of that. Your timeline is key here, right? You will open applications as soon as you possibly can once your space is solidified and all of the details are in place. You will source those photos. You will publish an application deadline. In some cases, you may like to do this on a rolling basis, but the more information, as I said, that you can put forth, the better. You'll have a review period where you're just simply sending a little email to confirm receipt because these entrepreneurs may have spent quite a bit of time on their application. They'll be eager to know when they will be hearing next steps. And you can put as much of that as possible right there in the application itself, but you will have people looking for that information. So just being prepared to send it right away and keep them informed of the process and even notify them if they have not been selected for the opportunity, or at least at that point in time. All of that communication is really key. So final branch notifications and then lunch date and move and begin. And that's a separate part of the process here.